UFC 301 is coming up and has been confirmed to be taking place in Brazil, so of course a lot of people are looking to who could possibly headline this card. It is pretty obvious that the original plan was to have Alex Pereira headlining this card, but with Alex Pereira fighting at UFC 300, who knows if he is actually going to be ready to headline 2 pay-per-views back-to-back like he has said that he wants to do, which would be insane. So a lot of people are looking to the current champion of flyweight, the Brazilian champion, Alexandre Pantoja, to be able to be the one to headline that card and be in that spot. But the problem is with Alexandre Pantoja, who is he going to fight? Now, it is kind of a couple of people that definitely have earned a title shot, I guess. You could give a title shot to Emir Albazi, you could maybe give a title shot to Manel Kape, but the real big talking point about this is a lot of people are looking at Alexandre Pantoja and they're seeing the work that he's actually done before becoming a champion is now starting to be noticed, because this guy isn't even the champion, well, wasn't even the champion, and he'd already kind of cleared out the division. His current record is 2-0 over Royval, who's number 1 ranked right now. 3-0 against Moreno if you include the Ultimate Fighter fight. He's beaten Kai Kara-France, he's beaten Kape, Perez, and he's beaten Matt Schnell as well. So a lot of people are kind of wondering, who is he going to fight next? And another thing as well, and a big problem that I'm not really seeing too many people bring up, I don't think Alexandre Pantoja is actually a big enough name to headline a card by himself. Now, I think that he's a big enough name to obviously be in the co-main event spot, but I don't think Alexandre Pantoja, although I am a big fan of him, and I did pick him to beat Moreno and Royval, and I do like his fight style, I think he's fun, even though his last 2 fights haven't been that exciting, to be fair. I just don't see him being able to headline UFC 301 by himself. And maybe if Brandon Moreno was able to beat Brandon Moreno's name value would have been able to be enough to do, I guess, the quadrilogy. But even then, that wouldn't interest me. I've already seen that fight take place 3 times, technically. So I look at the rankings and you go, man, who's he going to fight? Because at the moment, the number 1 contender is Brandon Royval. He did seemingly get injured against Moreno with his legs. He couldn't stand up after the post-fight interview, if you guys have seen that. But he kind of does seem to be the clear frontrunner. Aside from that, maybe you could give it to Emir Albazi, but he pulled out of that fight against Moreno. And Royval has the best win recently out of those 2, of course, because he beat Moreno. And then you could look down to Manel Kape. Manel Kape and Pantoja had a very, very competitive fight. Some people even think that Kape could have beaten Pantoja, so there is a little bit of storyline there, but Kape missed weight in his last fight. He was meant to take on Nicolau, he missed weight, and that fight got cancelled. I believe Nicolau is still coming off a loss to, if my memory does serve me correctly, Perez just lost to Makayev, and then Muhammad Makayev just beat Alex Perez. So maybe the UFC could do Makayev a little bit of a favour and just say, hey, Kai Kara-France is injured. Let's put Muhammad Makayev at number 4 in the rankings and do Makayev versus Pantoja. But if you really want my honest opinion on how I think that fight would go, I think Alexandre Pantoja would beat Muhammad Makayev somewhat easily. I couldn't say it's easily because stylistically it is a pretty bad matchup for Pantoja in a way, just because Makayev is a really good wrestler. And although Pantoja definitely is not the most technical striker at all, especially at this weight class, I do think Pantoja is good enough to give Muhammad Makayev problems in the striking. And his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is world class. I believe he's definitely a former Brazilian national champion in BJJ. I think he's a former world champion in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't think that's on here. I think it actually might be, to be honest. But the point is, Pantoja's good at grappling, and I think he would be able to beat Muhammad Makayev with pretty much ease, because Muhammad Makayev, we've seen him struggle against Tim Elliott. We've even seen him struggle against lower level guys as well. I know that he beat Charles Johnson with relative ease, but Charles Johnson still gave him some trouble. Malcolm Gordon gave him some trouble. Tim Elliott was 2-0 up on 2 scorecards against him before round 3. I just think Pantoja would be able to win that fight. But the point is, really, we need to give Pantoja a fight. Now, it would be honestly a little bit disappointing if he did just fight Brandon Royval immediately after he just beat Brandon Royval and just fought the same guy. In fact, he would fight Royval 3 times in the span of about 3 years, or less if that was the case. I feel like maybe you've just got to do Manel Kape versus Pantoja. But Manel Kape, his last win was over Felipe dos Santos, who didn't look that good in his last fight. It's just kind of like, what do we do? You know, like how the UFC can't really give Kape the title shot because that would be rewarding him for missing weight against Nicolau, which was kind of unfair. But then Amir Albazi is apparently still injured, and you can't really just give Amir Albazi the title shot because he pulled out of the fight against Moreno, so you can't reward that either. I feel like the UFC are left with really no option other than giving Royval the shot, because I guess you could definitely argue that Royval's earned it. I mean, he went out there on short notice, just after losing to Pantoja, and did defeat Moreno. I know there was a split decision, I'm pretty confident. I picked Moreno with high confidence, by the way, and I did think that Royval won that fight. So maybe you've got to reward that and just say, hey, thank you so much for fighting Moreno on short notice, headline in Mexico, and do that. Or you could just go against a fresh matchup and try and run the storyline of having one of the youngest champions in the world with Muhammad Mokaev fighting Pantoja. The age difference would be a lot, because I think Mokaev's like 22, 23 years old, but I think you're throwing Mokaev in the deep end, giving him a title shot right now. So yeah, you're kind of left with an odd situation, because Alexandre Pantoja, as obviously the record shows, he didn't get a title shot until recently, in 2023, and then he defeated Moreno. But before that, he was defeating a lot of really good guys. Of course, he did lose to Askar Askarov, he did lose to Figueiredo, but he's kind of just beaten everybody else in the UFC aside from that. He's really gone on a pretty impressive run, especially now looking at it in hindsight now that he's the champion. I was bringing up the idea of maybe bringing Kyoji Horiguchi, the current Ryzen champion, who has said that he wants to be in the UFC and fighting against Pantoja, but you can't really do that, because we saw on Twitter, I don't know who it was, but someone that definitely is in the know said that Kyoji Horiguchi won't be able to come over to the UFC because not only is he actually contractually obligated to Bellator and the PFL now, he's the Ryzen champion. So he's technically got contracts or obligated to contracts in 3 different promotions, which would just make things so complicated. And also, word is that he's making a lot of money fighting for Ryzen and Bellator, so he would have to take a pay cut to come over to the UFC, and they just don't see that being something that Kyoji Horiguchi would be willing to do. So who knows what they do with Pantoja? I don't know. The problem is with Pantoja, he did too much before getting the title shot, and he's kind of getting punished for it, because who knows who he's going to fight. And as I said, I just don't think Pantoja is a big enough name to headline this card. I mean, unless he headlined the card with another title shot, maybe like a woman's fight in the co-main event for a title, of course, that could work. But I feel like as a standalone main event, I don't think Pantoja is a big enough name. I don't think you could really sell the fight that way. So I feel like they kind of need Alex Pereira to be ready for 301. And I might make a separate video on that, but that's just my thoughts at the moment. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.